Welcome everybody to the Storytime channel. My name is Steven, and today we have some malicious compliance stories. Our first story of the day is by Lisa Le Meep Meep. His high employee turnover stopped being a problem after I quit. You're welcome, boss. This happened in about 2013. I had been offered a job as an assistant at a small fashion e-commerce. I was so excited. There were red flags from the beginning. The existing assistant that sat next to me was a little hesitant when I asked if the company was good to work for, and she told me that a lot of employees had come and gone for various undisclosed reasons, but I was too naive and enthusiastic to really pay attention. I came to find out that our boss, the business co-owner, along with his wife, was not quite the easygoing, fun boss he painted himself to be. He constantly reminded us how lucky we were to be working there, how we could easily be stacking shelves in a supermarket for the same wage. My fellow assistant truly did far too much for the company given her title, and my boss also constantly compared my work ethic to hers, even though I was working through my legal breaks and lunches along with her, never knowing what my finishing time would be, etc. During a period of a couple of months, I witnessed at least 3 other employees quit or be fired. One was let go because she fell ill. One quit on the spot after seeing that we were selling broken products. One simply wouldn't put up with the unreasonable scheduling. It was coming up to Christmas and the business was incredibly busy with orders. In addition to giving up my breaks, lunches, and set finishing times, the boss decided that we would all start coming into the office an hour earlier from tomorrow. Not a request. I had taken this on as a part-time job, so I was already struggling to cope and had confided in him about my mental health problems. Now he took my concerns and laughed in my face, asked if I just didn't want to get up early, said that he could easily replace me anyway, that he was thinking about firing me, and that he would enjoy seeing me stacking shelves when he next went to the supermarket. That was the final straw for me. I called his bluff. At the end of the workday, I went to his office and quit, surely before he could gloatingly fire me in front of everyone. Now, it must have been a big inconvenience for him to lose an employee 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, but oh well. He could just hire someone else, right? Not quite so easily. Now that I wasn't working, I needed to claim job seekers allowance, UK unemployment benefits, and they wouldn't award it if I had just quit a job on a whim. So I typed up a long, detailed list of everything that was going on in that office, the law breaking, the bullying, and handed it to my job center advisor. She was not happy, and I was informed that the company would no longer be allowed to advertise job openings with them. This was where they were getting all their hires from. Additional nail in the coffin, the boss and his wife had just bought new, bigger premises to cope with the increased demand for their products. Demand that now couldn't be met because they couldn't hire and keep enough people to pack the orders. A few years after all this, I looked up the company out of curiosity. It was dissolved in 2016. Of course, I did not believe, nor want to believe, that I brought down this e-commerce all by myself. But it does make me happy that, by calling my boss's bluff, I prevented at least some prospective employees from an awful experience. I think it's pretty disgusting that they were using this hiring agency or whatnot to bring on a ton of people that they viewed as disposable. Not only disposable, but just like clearly beneath them. Bringing in all these people that from the get-go they already planned to walk all over them and treat them like poop. If you went to a new job for the first time, and an employee that was already working there showed hesitancy in even answering the question of, is the company a good place to work for? Would you already begin looking for other possibilities just to make sure you have that safeguard? Or just hope for the best? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Gunmetal Laney. Employee bag checks suck. About 8 to 10 years ago, I worked for a major chain drugstore. Employees couldn't leave the store without a manager or supervisor digging through their bags first, and they often made you turn out your pockets if possible. It annoyed me because they'd take 10 minutes to get to you, and they would only let you take the last 5 minutes of your 15-minute break. So I decided to freak with them a couple times. Once, I specifically purchased the normal stuff I carry in my purse, all from my store. I wrapped everything in receipts. Like, you couldn't even see what anything actually was, because this is that store that gives you 3 feet of coupons on every receipt, and I used packing tape so none of it was useful. The eye roll was worth it, and they wanted to write me up, but technically I had followed policy, so they couldn't. Another time, I specifically purchased all competitor store brand products. Nothing that could possibly be purchased at our store, all house brands from other companies. They were very annoyed, and for the most part after that, they only glanced in my bag without touching anything anymore. Honorable mention was when I worked Christmas Day with a fever of 103 degrees Fahrenheit, and they refused to send me home. So when they checked my bag on that break, it was filled with used tissues. They did let me go home about 30 minutes early after that one. I'm just wondering the legalities of the situation. Do they have legal grounds to search you every time you leave the store? Is that a kind of thing that they can draft a policy up over? I mean, I guess it is involving drugs, but like, I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't sound legal to me. This next story is by Duet Masaki. Then take it. I work at a bar in California. In California, you can't take a drink outside of the bar, or the bar can get fined. So we really try to not let people leave with drinks. We have a patio with emergency exits that are alarmed. A few nights ago, I was cleaning up the patio, and some drunk jackbud with his girlfriend decided to take his drink to his car, and he left through the alarmed exit. I ran after him and told him that he couldn't have the drink outside. He smarted off and said, "Then take it," then started drinking it in front of me. While he had the drink in his hand, I snatched the cup. I stayed just long enough to see that he was shocked. He did the surprised Pikachu face and the straw fell out of his mouth. I walked back in the gate and shut it behind me so he couldn't come back in. He said to take it, so I did. Yeah, I don't really know what he expected. He literally said, "Take the cup." Not, "Oh, I'm sorry," not, "Oh, I don't care." He said, "No, take it. Don't mind if I do." Our next story is by Walking Joe. Don't have time? Wait an hour. This happened 7 or 8 years ago when I worked in store. At the entrance, we had a sign with the store rules. One of them was that we had the right to check bags that customers brought into our store. On that particular day, I was supervising the cash registers when one of the cashiers waved at me. I walk towards her and see 2 ladies discussing with her. She explains to me that the ladies didn't want to open her bag so she could look inside. I ask them nicely to let me look into the bag as per store rule. One of them starts shouting at me that they don't have time for this nonsense. I'm looking at her and thinking, here we go again. Then she suddenly shouts, "When you want to see my bag, call the police." Okay, wait over there in the corner while I call them. The dispatcher asked if I suspected they had stolen anything. I don't know, they just don't want us to check the bag. The dispatcher said it's really busy and it could take a while. Okay, the waiting game begins. 20 minutes later, the ladies had enough of the waiting and starts packing their stuff and wants to leave. I stop them and tell them they wanted the police and to wait for them. After another 20 minutes, the police arrive. They ask me what the problem is, and I tell them that we just wanted to check the bag. The officer looks at them and asks if he could look in the bag. Sure, no problem. He then goes all in. ID please, full background check. When he's ready with that, again 15 minutes have passed. He then gives them a lecture about store rules and using time from police for something like that. Again 5 minutes have passed. Don't have the time? Wait an hour. Had a good laugh with the officer when I told them how long they were there. I'm not sure I ever heard of stores having rules where they can just search your bags and whatnot like that, but if it's legal, and you go into this store and you're browsing around, especially one that carries a lot of expensive merchandise, you got no one to blame but yourself for being in there and being in that situation. Obviously you're there and those are the rules, so you must have the time. And upon researching further, it turns out this was in the Netherlands, so it's definitely something that just kind of varies from the US. This next story is by CT Wargamer. Boss tries to bully me. I get a new boss. Many moons ago, mid-90s, I worked for an ISP, not in US nor Europe, looking after various back-end systems. There were 2 of us in the same team. What was weird is that they went through a mini restructure and we both had different bosses, even though we both did the same work and shared the load between us. I was single at the time and lived about 5 minutes drive from the office. My official office hours were 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Becomes relevant later. Often stayed until after 7 p.m. to do work, learn new Unix things, troubleshoot major issues. At some point I decided my old car was past its prime, so I bought another one. I sent my boss a number of emails about how the following week I was going to take a longer lunch, as the car would be ready for collection and trading in the old one. I also told him about it twice the week before the collection date. Cover your butt, people. Day of collection, everything is great. Took 2 hours to get the paperwork all sorted out. Hoping car is an absolute magnet for the opposite sex, off I go. 2 days later, I get called into a meeting and get absolutely pooped on about why did I take such a long lunch. Boss needed me for something, but I wasn't there. This was in the days pre-mobiles being readily available. I was upset, tried to tell him I told him I was taking a long lunch, kept interrupting me and shouting over me. I left super annoyed. Cue malicious compliance. I started working my official hours. After the second day, I get a phone call at home. Company had numbers in case of emergency. At 5 p.m., it's boss asking where I am. Told him I had left for the day and was at home about to fire up Red Alert on my PC. He told me that was unacceptable and needed me to do something. How could I leave at this time? Blah blah. Shouted he's getting HR involved. I told him it was unacceptable to talk to me like that and we can address this issue the next day at work. And hung up on him. Thanks, Mom, for helping me get the strong backbone to do that. Nearly wet myself. Next day, HR, CEO, and my boss call me into a meeting. I knew this was coming and had printed off the emails about taking a long lunch. Boss goes off at me about disrespect, lack of performance, taking long lunches, etc. I showed the email, explained the situation, and asked what's the issue. At this point, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He was so angry and red in the face. CEO asked me to leave the meeting. They would discuss. Outcome was I got the same manager my coworker reported into. Everything went back to great. Karma being a witch, my ex-boss actually did have a heart attack a few months later. He survived but changed his ways. A lot less alcohol and smoking. The whole system kind of seemed awkward and inefficient, and really I think the outcome was what needed to happen to begin with. No need to weirdly split things up when you don't need to split things up. And our final story of the day is by Forever Souls Raven. But you paid for lunch? So in the state I live, we have strict labor laws that require companies to give employees 30-minute breaks every 5 hours worked, or else they can get in trouble with the state and get fined. Also, a break is defined as nothing work-related that the employee can rest. Important fact. So this happened Thursday. The department I work in needed to do a consultation meeting at a time where everybody could be present. The time happened to be during my scheduled lunch break. Mind you, my schedule is full with clients before and after the meeting with no wiggle room. So we met for lunch to do our meeting. Everybody gets their lunch and the meeting starts, and as we are eating, we're discussing different cases and how we will proceed with these cases. Meeting ends 5 minutes before I have a meeting with my next client. So technically, I never had a break, hence not clocking out for lunch. I knew the following morning HR would contact me because my timesheet showed that I never clocked out for lunch. HR says, "Did you forget to clock out?" I say, "Nope, I did not have a lunch." HR says, "But you had one scheduled." I say, "Yes, that is true. However, CEO and director scheduled a mandatory meeting during that time, so I had to participate." HR says, "Oh, well, did you take any breaks?" I say, "No, because my schedule was full and there was no time to take breaks." HR said, "Okay, you're good." I heard the CEO complain later because they have to pay me time and a half of overtime for not taking a break. But HR telling the CEO that I, the employee, was correct, and that even though the CEO paid for lunch, it was still work time because it was a mandatory meeting. I could have sworn CEO snarled at me yesterday. Rules and regulations are rules and regulations. I particularly adore any workplace that gives you the outline of a break as being defined as not dealing with anything work-related, especially ones that assure you that if your break is interrupted in any way, you're entitled to a whole new session of the break. It always feels like companies that have rules like that are always actually looking out for you. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.